Students are now suing Harvard University over what they call rampant anti-Semitism on the elite school's campus. Let's bring in North Carolina Congresswoman Virginia Foxx. She serves as chair of the House Education and Workforce Committee. What is your take on everything that's been going on at Harvard over these last couple of months, really since Hamas invaded Israel?
Well, John, the main thing that we're focused on is making sure that students are safe, that faculty and students are not discriminated against because of their religion or their beliefs. And we want to make sure that we search out the source of all of this anti-Semitism that's going on these campuses, not just Harvard, but other campuses. So we have launched an investigation. The committee's launched an investigation. I've written a long letter to Harvard, and I've asked for a response by January 23rd to a lot of questions to get to the bottom of what's happening on these campuses, because I believe, and many other people, that there's a great rot on these campuses. They've become very woke. They've been taken over by illiberal people, very illiberal people, and we want to get to the bottom of it. The schools should be, number one, help educating students and making the universities a marketplace of ideas where all ideas can prosper, and they should be keeping the students and faculty safe.
You said that you have a long list of questions for Harvard and some of these other schools, but what's your number one question?
Well, how did we get to this place at Harvard? What has happened to cause it to be in such a bad shape? The president of Harvard, at the hearing that we held on December 5th, equivocated in her answers. But there again, we have problems at many, many universities, but Harvard has been held out as the #1 university in the world. And look at where the #1 university has come to. It is in a terrible place when it comes to honoring ideas, honoring the idea of a marketplace of ideas, keeping Jewish students safe, stopping anti-Semitism, stopping these demonstrations that were occurring, calling for the destruction of Israel. We can't have that in our country, and particularly at the institution that is supposed to be the #1 post-secondary institution in the world. So we're going to be investigating not just Harvard, but other institutions. But we want to make sure that the United States maintains its history of being the place where the best colleges and universities are.
Yeah, well, one of the good colleges and universities in this country is Johns Hopkins. And of course, they have had a flap of their own. The diversity chief of that school put out a statement that suggested that whites and males and Christians are among, the elites, the privileged in this country.
They're the oppressors.
Right.
I think they're called the oppressors.
Right. White people, there it is on the screen, white people, yes. Able-bodied people, heterosexuals, males, Christians, middle or owning class people, on it went. And those are the, yes, as you say, the oppressors. Well, she apologized for that. She said, she writes, "The newsletter included a definition of the word privilege, which upon reflection I deeply regret. In fact, because it was oversimplistic and poorly worded, it had the opposite effect of being exclusionary and hurtful to members of our community. I retract and disavow the definition I shared, and I am sorry." I guess that's one of the more direct apologies I've ever heard, but for this kind of thing. But what do you think about what prompted it?
Well, it's really hard to understand what has prompted it. About a year and a half ago, I think it was, the African American Museum in Washington published a similar kind of thing, saying all our problems in our country come from whiteness and from these kinds of attributes. you can count on the fact that we will be looking into Johns Hopkins also and questioning this woman as to where she's coming from with these ideas. I don't think this was an accident. I don't think it was poorly worded. I think it was on purpose. And it's what's happening with DEI across the country. We're going to be looking at these offices. I think the public needs to know how its money's being spent. Hardworking taxpayers are supporting these institutions, John, and they don't like how their money's being spent.
Fascinating. Congresswoman Virginia Foxx, Republican of North Carolina, thank you.
Thank you, John.